Welcome back to another episode of the HigherUp podcast. I'm your host, Michael Smoke, and with me today I have a special guest, the fastest growing content creator on social media quite possibly right now, internet father figure to almost 1 million people, CEO of Count Your Fucking Calories, and a professional fellow hater of V-Shred, Scotty.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Dude, I'm excited to do this. This is totally unplanned.
Completely.
I didn't even really fully know you were going to be here when we planned to do this trip. And then, because we remember you and I had talked, and I was like, I'll be there the 6th through the 8th. And you said, well, I leave the 5th.
Yeah.
And you ended up, what did you end up doing?
I extended my stay specifically so I can meet you.
Thank you.
It was awesome, man.
You actually didn't just extend your stay. You've done a lot of things since you got to Texas.
I absolutely have, man. I had an opportunity to collaborate with some of my favorite people that I've been following on social media overall for years. First and foremost, former ScottyKFitness, Tyler, and his girlfriend, Isabella. I mean, just incredibly humble people, beautiful people. And they gave me and my wife a place to stay while we've been here, and got to hang out with TNF and his wife and just a lot of the EchoVision athletes, and really just made me feel at home down here. It's been amazing.
Good. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Besides the absolute blistering heat,
it's been humid. Well, it's not the heat that gets you. It's the humidity.
It's the humidity. Yeah, that's what they all say. Either way you walk out and your bones are bleached.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
So I guarantee you a lot of the people that follow me also follow you. I mean, we noticed that on your live stream today, which I love.
Yeah.
Because they love when we get together and we do this thing. But for the people who maybe don't know you that listen to my podcast, can we just do a 30,000 foot view on who you are, your background, and what got you here?
Absolutely. So I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm 29, but I've lived a lot of life. I have been on my own since I was 14. I've had an amalgamation of careers, including law enforcement and EMS, fire service. I'm a combat veteran. I spent 11 months overseas as a private military contractor in Afghanistan. I'm a father of 4. My youngest daughter is special needs, and I am a coach as well. I'm a USA boxing certified boxing coach, as well as a body recomp coach, and currently going to school for nutrition, and just an avid lover of people. I'm a humanist, I think.
Yeah, I've noticed. I'm going to start using that one.
Yeah.
When I hear that background, most people might be presumptuous to think that, military guy, father, busy internet fitness coach, he's always been jacked. Always had the physique.
No.
But quite the contrary, right? So what's your story like on your transformation? Where'd you start?
So it started at the bottom of the barrel as far as self-respect goes. And I think that's where fitness starts. I used to be just north of 300 pounds. The largest number I ever saw on the scale was 304.
What do you weigh now?
I believe roughly 182, around that. And I did it wrong for a long time. Public education doesn't really do much justice towards nutrition. So
you don't say.
Oh man, I didn't know what a calorie was until I was 23. And I didn't really figure it out as far as nutrition goes and training goes until I was about 26. So all in all, I've been training for a long time, but through developing eating disorders and doing things wrong for a long time, now finally I'm where I feel like I should be.
When you say disordered eating, did that struggle occur on the weight loss journey? Is that where that started to manifest itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you start at that bottom where you struggle with your respect for yourself, and you're like, I want to change. Maybe you don't feel like you deserve to change, but you know that it's going to take work, and you resign yourself to suffer. So when you start and you're doing it the wrong way, like I did, and you're like, man, all I'm doing is suffering. You think you're doing it right. And I found people on the internet that preached the things that I did, and it was unhealthy. To give an instance, I would not eat for days at a time just to starve myself. And this is before I found out what a calorie was, what a macro was, what a basal metabolic rate.
All the things that are vital to success.
Absolutely. Just the 101s of these things, the building blocks. And so I wouldn't eat for days, and I would wake up and just be starved in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. And the specific scenario that I bring up a lot of the time is that I woke up in the middle of the night through hunger pains, and I went downstairs in my home and I cooked. And as I cooked, I ate 18 chili dogs over the stove. To make matters worse, I did I did make myself sick during that process, but halfway through it, and I came back and I ate more. And then I cried, and I realized that I had messed up. And so I punished myself through cardiovascular training, and I tried to run 6 miles. I don't know why that number popped into my head, but I was like, it's got to be 6. And I ran, and I was in pain, and I made myself even more sick during that event, and I cried some more, and then I didn't eat for a couple more days. And that's when I realized I've got a problem.
How long did that cycle last of struggling with your relationship with food to that degree?
I still struggle. I go to therapy for it still. Luckily, I have an amazing therapist who I've been seeing for about a year now. And it's not just the disordered behavior, but as well as PTSD and body dysmorphia and all these things that former heavyset guys deal with.
Yeah.
And luckily, I have found an amazing community to help me through it as well. So
you articulated something really well that I've always understood and never known how to explain for a guy who can't stop talking. This is the one thing that always leaves me a little bit speechless was you said, maybe I don't feel like I deserve to change.
Yeah.
A lot of people will self-sabotage because they don't feel like they deserve to change. And I've never really been able to get to the why behind that.
Yeah.
And people, I've never heard anyone articulate it well, but you said, maybe I had to suffer to feel as though I deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that.
So you hear fitness influencers in the space say that it's going to be grueling. It's going to be hard. Guys like V-Shred.
Fuck V-Shred.
Fuck that guy. And they mention that it's going to be a process and it's going to be hard. And you look at some of the guys that spend hours in the gym, that are blasting gear, and they look like they're in pain. They look like they're suffering. And when you start, you have no idea what you're doing, right? And the only thought I had in my mind was, it's going to suck. So when it started to suck, I just kept going. And that can be beneficial in some circumstances when you're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. But as far as feeling like you deserve to change, self-respect didn't come to the forefront of my training or how I treated myself at all until I turned 25. And that happened while I was overseas. And that came from, not to use a coined term, but extreme ownership of my shortcomings. Mm-hmm. When I went to Afghanistan, I couldn't do a pull-up to save your life or mine. And I didn't respect myself while I'm surrounded by these operators, these 3-letter agency guys who, you're not supposed to see and all that stuff. And I'm standing next to these dudes. I don't belong there. And even my time in the military, I became morbidly obese when I was in the Army. I faked a back injury. I was malignant so I wouldn't have to take a PT test because I was terrified to be judged. And I, would tell people, hey, I'm bulking. I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
I wasn't training.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be accepted. And for the longest time, I pretended. I pretended to be a gym guy. I pretended to be a soldier. I pretended to be a father and a husband. But eventually I had this thought, pretending isn't working. I'm not practicing. I'm just putting on a front. And so that's where I found one of my favorite quotes of Latin. It's esse quam videri.
It's on your shoulder right there.
It is on my shoulder. I got it tattooed very recently. And that translates to be rather than to seem. And it reminds me that whatever front I put forward, whatever front-facing actions are required to be the person that I'm supposed to be, I have to take those actions where I can't negotiate.
Yeah.
I can't.
What is it fair to say that to a degree, shame was a catalyst for you? When you mentioned I couldn't do a pull-up, I was lying about bulking, and that eventually got you to the point where you started? Yeah.
So self-detriment and negative self-talk and shame can be a catalyst, but not a driver.
Yeah. 100%.
It can be the pivoting point, but you have to be very honest with yourself. And that's the hardest part, is to take that long look at yourself and be like, yeah, no, I'm a liar and I'm not doing what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
Another piece that started this whole thing is I had recently had a daughter at the time, like my first kid, and I was young, man. Kids having kids. I was 19 and in a horrible marriage. depressed, overweight. And my wife at the time had left me home with my brand new infant daughter. And she was upstairs sleeping in her crib, and she woke up and she was crying. And I ran upstairs like quickly, because I thought something was wrong. And I had to stand there in her nursery staring at her, crying because I was too lightheaded to pick her up because I ran up the stairs. And again, that was another catalyst where I was like, man, something's got to give.
Yeah.
And at that very moment, even when starting then, I was posting these things on social media. Like, I'm going to change who I am. Right. And so I used social media as like a coach, somebody to keep me accountable. Just the ubiquitous void of social media. And man, I got a lot of hate for it. And I trained the wrong way for a long time too. And so a lot of people hated me. They're like, oh, what are you doing? You're not that guy. Why are you trying to be a fitness guy?
Was this a long time ago?
Yeah. I mean, even recently, in the past year.
That's hard for me to believe given your trajectory. That's crazy.
But where I live, there's not a lot of, social media influencers.
Sure.
And so, especially in the community that I'm in, a lot of guys will say like, why are you attempting, you're not somebody to give these kind of advices. And, my training has changed 10 different times as well.
Yeah.
When I first started, I wanted to be the strongest I could be. Then I wanted to be as skinny as possible. And that was very unhealthy. I tracked my weight every single day for 2.5 years. And I mean, I would wake up in the morning, I'd stand in front of the mirror in the nude, I would weigh myself. And then if I had a negative emotion about the number that I saw on the scale, I would look up and that negativity would be projected onto my body in the mirror. And that was detrimental to my success.
And then it would fuck up your whole day.
Just a unique opportunity to fuck up my whole day.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until my daughter had a medical event that I changed how I trained for mobility and agility and be able to move my body rather than just look good or be strong. And that's when I started running. So if I can, my daughter, Amelia, oh God, it was 4 years ago now. I always knew she was a little peculiar. She hadn't been diagnosed with autism at that time. I just knew she was a little strange. And I had full custody of my kiddos, and my girlfriend at the time called me into the living room where we were staying. And my daughter's like a Tasmanian devil. She's all over the place, right?
Ripping around.
Just tearing stuff up. And I walk into the front room and she's in a half squat position, just locked. And I had no medical training at the time other than, how to plug a bullet hole.
Yeah.
So I go to pick her up and it's like moving a statue. And then she drooled and I was like, oh, fuck, I think she's having a seizure. And so I pick her up and I'm getting goosebumps. I pick her up and I run out of the house. I don't have my shoes on, no socks either. I grab my girlfriend's keys and I'm doing the only thing I know how to do, and is drive, right? I'm driving like a bat out of hell, 120 miles an hour in city streets, going into oncoming traffic, trying to get to definitive care, urgent care. And she's fully seizing at this point in my arms while I'm driving. Terrifying moments. Get up to the urgent care. I almost run into the building with the car. So I sprint inside holding her. The only reason I know she's still alive is she's fully convulsing. She's blue. And now I know that means she's cyanotic and hypoxic. So her oxygen is not perfusing to her cells. She is circling the drain on a banana peel. And I get inside and I'm screaming for help. There's nobody in the lobby. There's nobody in the hallways. I go through a patient door and I scare the fuck out of this old lady. I'm trying to get into the nurses station where the doctors are and the nurses, and nobody, and I end up kicking the door in. And I grab a crash cart. I don't know what I'm doing. I put one of those masks on her face and start pumping them, but it's an adult BVM. So I'm oxygenating her fucking eyeballs. It's just this big. Yeah. I mean, she's a baby. Doctors and nurses come out and they're like, what the hell is going on? And they end up helping. And I cut her jeans off with a pair of trauma shears. And I remember that vividly. And her seizure persisted for 2.5 hours. It was insane. And it was paramedics that showed up that ate their fucking Wheaties that day that saved my daughter. And all I could do was stand there and just wring her jeans and just twist them and knot them up and just hold on for dear life. And It wasn't until we got to the hospital and got her intubated and properly oxygenated till I finally just broke down. And I realized that I needed to change my knowledge base. I needed to change how I trained, because maybe I could have been faster. Maybe I could have been better. Maybe I could have gotten her there faster, right? And so it turns out she has tumors in all of her vital organs. She's got brain tumors in her heart, her lungs, her liver, kidneys, one behind her left eye, and we can't operate on them. So she's going to have epilepsy her whole life. She's going to be in renal failure her whole life. She's going to have autism for her entire life. She's going to be disabled for forever. And we've got her in therapy, and she's a little shit kicker. She's so strong. She's awesome. And she's made me a better man, because after that, I decided I need to go to EMT school. I need to learn how to keep her alive. And instead of carrying around a gun everywhere I went, I put that away and I started carrying around a trauma kit. And I have this big trauma kit in my trunk no matter what. I take it with me to the gym. I take it with me on trips, if I can get it checked on a plane, so that no matter what, if something happens, I can help somebody. So I've expanded my knowledge. I've expanded my training into endurance training as well as strength training, so that no matter what happens, I'm effective. That's it.
Oh, I just got chill bumps. I think there's a lot that I want to ask you about there, but I think the important and interesting call out to me is you never know what somebody is dealing with.
Yeah.
Like when I watch your content, I never would have guessed you've faced all these trials and tribulations, and that, in a way, raising a kid with a disability is a challenge every day. It's different from an average parent upbringing. You have things you have to be conscious of that my parents didn't. Mm-hmm. And people just don't know. And that's why I'm hyper cautious of people who shit talk on the internet, bash creators. Yeah. It's like you never know whether someone's content is bad or not. You never know what somebody's dealing with. So it's impressive that you're able to put on this positivity, and not even just positivity, but value, and grow at the rate that you have. So for anybody who doesn't know, your rate of growth on social media is borderline unprecedented. Yeah. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing.
We're talking about hundreds of thousands of followers a month at the rate you're going the last 2 months. Like a rate that it's L-shaped. It's like this, and then it's straight the fuck up.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And it's got to be crazy for you.
It's insane.
But
I used to make content that was like, I'm training to fight my demons in the dark. Just really cringy stuff, right? The stuff that nobody cares about, because I was portraying something that I wasn't. I was pretending to be an influencer, right? The stuff you see that you're like, oh, that guy's jacked. That guy looks like Batman. And it wasn't until I started watching guys like you, guys like TNF, guys like Tyler, and Liam, the plants slant, where, I was like, man, these guys have character. And it's a terrifying prospect, but I've put almost 100% of myself on the internet, of who I am, just to my core values, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or Twitch or whatever I'm doing. And people have accepted me. I don't receive hate comments. I don't receive negativity, and it's amazing. I mean, I'm about to cry. I have put myself out there to my bare bones, and people have accepted me. Mm-hmm. And that could have gone the opposite direction.
But you know what? It rarely does. And when you come from a place of true authenticity, I've said this in a video where I celebrated quitting my job a year ago last week, and it was the 5 lessons I've learned. And one of them was, the only place to create content from, if you're going to do this, is from a place that is truly you. And Rick Rubin, a guy who works with Hollywood producers, who works with famous people all the time, says the best artists, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, the GOATs, they're creating art that is for them. It's not for the consumer. And you have mastered the combination of quality in content, value with recipes, training tips, your fitness myth videos, real tangible value, and a degree of pure, like, this is me. Like, I wasn't surprised by you when I met you.
Right.
In a way, I knew I got Scotty in the videos. You weren't playing a fucking character. You're being funny, but you have mastered that art. And I think that's what people struggle. And that's why I was interested in talking to you, is almost unconsciously, you have mastered the art of authenticity, value, consistency, and quality. And so many people that ask me about content creation are like, where do I start? I'm like, just be you.
Yeah, I have no idea how I did it. That's the thing is, I have an iPhone 13.
That shocked me.
People have asked me recently since I've been in Houston, like, what camera do you use, man? Like, I use my front-facing camera on my iPhone 13 Pro. Like, and I have just like the cheapest mics that are effective. And like, I really enjoy the content that I make. I don't have like big lights. I have like a little, it's got like an RGB setting on the light or whatever.
Yeah.
I have like the cheap stuff. And what it is I love what I'm doing, you know, and I'm ridiculous and I'm jumping around the screen and I'm being silly. But then, you know, you get that and you get the contrast of that with my Sup Kid series. And man, do I love making those videos. I cry every time I make them. And if I don't cry when I'm making them, I cry when I edit them. And real men cry real tears. I'm a huge, huge proponent of mental health, no matter who you are, man, woman, indifferent, in between, whatever. And I wanted to make a series teaching the younger generation things that I wish I would have been taught by a father that I never had. I had a slew of stepdads who just beat the shit out of me, all growing up. And all of them were named Dave. My mom had a thing for Dave's.
Interesting correlation. We'll have to dive into it a different day.
Next podcast. But I wanted to do that, but I wanted it to be organic. I didn't want to be the guy that screams about calories and jumps around the screen and then show up one day and be like, hi, kids. So I waited and I had all these ideas and I waited for somebody to ask me because that gave me permission to be that person for somebody. Mm-hmm. Even if it was just one person that watched that video. And so finally this amazing woman who's a teacher named Whitney, she commented on one of the videos of the fitness myths and said, hey, I've got 2 daughters and I would love for them to see this and I'll show them, but could you make one that's maybe a bit more kid friendly? And I screenshotted that comment and immediately like almost did a backflip. And I was like, God, I can't wait to get home. And I went home and I immediately like made that video. And once again, accidentally came up with what I think is like the perfect outline to these things where it's like I step onto the screen and very softly, sup kid, can we talk? I'm asking permission to be a part of that valuable moment. And then I give the expectation. I've got 8 things. Is that cool? And then if you agree, cool, let's move forward.
Yeah.
And then I give every part of myself in those videos, everything I wish I would have been told when I was a young man, or just a young person, how to be decent, how to handle these things, how to propel yourself past my trials. And that first video, I did not expect to do well, you know, and that was fine. It's not about the quantity of people that sees it for me. I just care that it helps somebody. And if this ends tomorrow, as long as one of my videos helps one more person today, that's all that matters to me. I'll be okay no matter what.
Yeah. And that mission can never change. As long as one person benefits from what we do, this is all worth it.
100%. And with the things that I struggled with, I find myself in a unique position to give advice humbly because I still struggle with it. I still struggle with counting my calories. I still struggle with overeating and loving myself on a daily basis, and valuing myself is a huge problem I have, especially with this newfound space that I've accidentally found myself in social media, where I'm surrounded by all these people that I've followed for years in the social media space that are like, man, you are a huge creator now and you deserve these specific things. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know about that. Because I'm just a guy. I'm just some asshole with an iPhone who won't stop talking.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man. And you got to be feeling a little bit, because I did. And I thought I was growing quick. I told you last time that I thought this happened fast for me, but you're moving at Mach 6.
Yeah.
And the imposter syndrome can really, really creep in.
It was there from day 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still deal with it now? I mean, thinking about like, why me? Why so many people?
Yeah. And I can't get past it yet. And the people that I've met here in Houston have been just instrumental in me accepting part of it in the way that, like, I'll never think that I deserve it. I think if anybody wakes up with the type of lifestyle that we have at this point in time and think that they deserve it, it's time to shut it down. Because I haven't earned the platform. I've been given this platform. And if I abuse it by immediately believing that I deserve it, then I'll lose it.
Yeah. And I believe that people will see through that energy and that lack of authenticity, and that will cause you to have issues as well. Like I believe when people create content for money, they create content for clout to get famous. It never takes off, or they quit because they're not doing it with a strong why, which in one of your videos, it may have been a sup kid. I think you started it with sup kid. I hear you're thinking about getting started working out.
Yeah.
And the first thing you said verbatim was, remember why you started. This journey requires a lot of hard work, and remembering why you started will keep you from wanting to quit.
Yes.
And your why is obviously that horrible, challenging moment in the hospital with your daughter. How does somebody find a why to stick with this stuff forever? Because we're talking about doing this stuff till we die. That's what fitness is.
Yeah. I've had those moments where I'm in the gym where I'm looking myself in the mirror while working through an exercise, and I'm thinking like, I got to keep doing this shit, man. You know,
forever.
It's not always like I feel good and I feel jacked or whatever. It's like sometimes I just don't want to do it. But your why, how do you find your why is the question you asked. It's different for absolutely everybody. When I started lifting weights, and I mean, absolutely the first time I picked up weights, I was 12. And it's weird, but I wanted to beat up my stepdad. I was being abused. I was like, I got to get jacked. I got to break his nose. That's when I started. And it changed. Your why is going to change, but the core doesn't. Your why will change a bunch. When I started, I was a scared kid. And I still feel like that scared kid sometimes. I feel small in this world sometimes. And I think a lot of people do. And as you change, as your priorities change in life, your why changes. Because back then, my why wasn't my 5-year-old daughter, but it is now.
Yeah.
You know, something that I often say, people ask me, what's your motivation? How do you stay so motivated? I'm not motivated. I don't want to do this, man. It's hard. I have a home gym. I have taken away every excuse to not do it. And I don't have dedication or discipline or whatever buzzword you want to throw in there. I call it a conviction. If you're convicted to something, you have to do it. People rely on you. No matter who you are, somebody relies on you. And how disrespectful would it be for you not to do what is required of you? And that's where I'm at. My family relies on me. I'm currently a first responder. My city, the people who call 911, they rely on you to show up and do a job. If you can't do it, how dare you? The audacity. And that's where my conviction lies.
Yeah. You and I share that conviction. I think it's important that your why is always greater than your lack of energy, than your lack of want to, know-how, willpower. I may not know how to start, but I know I want to, and that's bigger than my lack of knowledge.
100%.
So I'm going to do it. But man, I get really fired up in my content sometimes, and it rubs people the wrong way when I say, how fucking dare you not make the most of the body you have when people depend on you, people trust you. You're a father. You're a mother. You have people that look to you, and everybody has a laundry list of problems until they have a health problem. And then there's just one problem. And
yeah, that's one of my favorite things you've said.
Thank you. It's not original, but it struck me, and I think about it every day, and I'm living it now with, my role model and my idol, my dad, who's lived this life of never being horrible to himself, but never prioritizing his health.
Right.
He's the greatest man I've ever known, and he's had a lot of problems his whole life. And now he has a major health problem, and everything else has stopped. And I just know there's a lot of people out there who think this thing could never happen to me. He thought the same. And I haven't talked about this yet on the podcast. So this is definitely vulnerable and something I wasn't even sure I was going to share on social media. But it's, you've got kids to show up for. And if you don't, I think that it is a disservice, and it is the most selfish thing that you can possibly do, is not show up for the people around you by taking care of yourself.
In my last sub-kid video that I filmed in just the bathroom over here, here in Houston, one of the things that I said, sorry, you said something that reminded me of it and I've lost it.
That's okay. We can pivot until you remember.
Sure.
Because I had something that I thought of in that conversation. We were talking about in your podcast with Liam.
Yeah.
And what was the other gentleman's name? You guys did the three-way pod? Rob. You talked about a guy you served with, Dakota.
Yeah.
And
Dakota.
And I think it's cool. The ripple effect of social media is something I want to talk about with you. I said in a video a long time ago, you never know who's rooting for you and you never know who you're impacting.
Yeah.
And in that video, you talked about Dakota. So just briefly, high level, tell how that happened and what happened.
So Dakota and I served together in the Army National Guard. And the Army National Guard has professionalism, but it's very vague at times. The leadership that I had was more of a lack of leadership. And I can't blame 100% of my body composition at that time on that. It was obviously my own fault, but I didn't have any non-commissioned officer take me under their wing and say, hey buddy, like, let's fix it. Right. So, my lack of knowledge and their lack of leadership led to a lot of problems. And Dakota experienced the same thing. So you get out of basic training in infantry school and you're skinny, right? You got some lean muscle, but you feel jacked and you're on top of the world. You're bulletproof, right? And I experienced that Dunning-Kruger effect of like, I'm the shit, but I knew nothing.
Yeah.
And so quickly it got out of hand, and Dakota and I were both the fat guys. We were both, just 32% body fat. We were thick. And both of us, you could tell, were just horribly depressed. And we were friends because we both suffered through those things together. And then he got out and he moved to Washington, and I didn't hear from him for years. And I made a fitness Instagram page, and boy, did I catch some heat for that.
While you were still active duty?
No. I made one, when I had gotten out, and I had gotten back from Afghanistan. So it was the end of 2019, early 2020. I got back into law enforcement, which was a mistake. But I wanted to feel good about what I was posting. And I kept getting a lot of hate for posting my physique updates, my meals, and all these things that I was doing on my personal Instagram page. I was like, why don't I just make a fitness one? That way, if people follow, they know what they're getting into.
Right.
Well, Dakota followed me. One of the first people to do it, to hit the follow button. And, very early on, as people follow you, you're like, oh my God, somebody might like me.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Somebody might take value in what I'm doing. And for a year and a half, 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, I posted to that page, and it wasn't until recently that Dakota reached out to me, maybe a year ago. And he said, hey man, I don't know if you remember me. I was like, absolutely I do, man. How's it going? Where have you been? And he said, I don't know if you remember me, but I've been shadowing your Instagram and doing the things you've been doing and doing some of your workouts, and I've lost 130 pounds. And oh my God, I burst into tears. And then we shared phone numbers and Snapchats, and he sends me all of his physique updates and stuff. And the dude looks amazing, and his life has changed. His health markers are insane now. And now he's one of my closest friends. He's a moderator on my Discord. And he Snapchatted me since I've been here in Houston, just checking on me. He's one of the sweetest people on the planet.
And this is before you were a 1 million follower content creator. This was right at the beginning.
Yeah. On Instagram, I had maybe 300 followers.
Yeah.
On TikTok, I had maybe 700 followers.
Yeah. What a lesson.
Yeah. And then I kept throwing myself into the ether, and something clicked. And I love cooking, and I'm ridiculous in the kitchen, and I do all the really silly shit. Maybe I don't jump on the counters every time, but
you do a lot.
I do a lot. But I do a lot of silly shit. I do voices, Cortana. I do dumb stuff when I'm cooking. And my idea was why don't I make some videos? I was mad about the fitness industry. So I made a satire video about making pizza, and nobody took it as satire.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah. I said, I want pizza, but I don't want to get fat. Let's make a chicken crust pizza. And I had so many comments one pizza's not going to make you fat, you fucking idiot. Yes, correct. So like I rewatched the video. I was like, oh, okay.
I love the lack of understanding of context of people on the internet sometimes.
Well, I rewatched the video. I was like, maybe I could have come off a little bit more satirical because it was very serious. And so I made a follow-up video, and that was my first fitness myths video. And I was like, all right, I'm going to eat a whole pizza while I just crush fitness myths, right? And I was like, what's the number one thing that I fucking hate in the social media fitness space? V-shred. And so that was like 1 or 2 on the list. I can't remember, but it was like number 1, literally anything this guy says, fuck that guy. And that landed, because the guy's a dirtbag.
Yeah.
And so my wife actually, I couldn't do I couldn't do my videos in front of her for like the first few weeks because I felt weird. I'm being like all kinds of crazy, and silly. And she convinced me to let her sit in the dining room when I was doing it once. And she started filming me without me really knowing. And she cut together all my like behind the scenes or bloopers. And I was laughing and I was having a good time while doing it. And I haven't seen myself that happy. And now her page is almost exclusively behind the scenes content of my cooking and being ridiculous. And even here, while we were here, she did behind the scenes stuff with me and Tyler. And it's some of my favorite stuff because I get to watch myself experience happiness. And you don't get that. You don't get to see yourself feel happiness. And there's been recent times where I've been sad. I won't use the term depressed, but recent times where I've kind of been in my feelings, and I was pulling a shift at work, just to make up some time that I had lost on a Wednesday. And I sat there and I was like, man, I'm sad. I can't remember the last time I laughed, and I cried. And I was like, I went to my wife's page on TikTok and I watched one of the videos she posted, and I was like, I cried again. And I was like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to cook something. And I called her and I was like, hey, I'm going to leave work. I'm going to come home and I'm going to cook. I'm just going to have a good time. I might make a video, I might not, but will you get these ingredients? I just came up with an idea on the fly. I was like, will you get these ingredients? She's like, yeah. So she got them to the house, and I walked in and I made the video, and that video is my best performing video because I was 100% there to be me. That's like 6.3 million views or whatever. It's insane.
So was that the catalyst of the video that like really changed everything for you?
No, that was the video I made before I came here.
Oh,
it's the meat pie video.
Oh yeah. I watched that one.
Yeah.
I watch all of your shit all the way through, and that's always a sign of like really good content. If you finish a TikTok video, you know it's good.
Yeah.
I have a rodent attention span.
It's just brain rot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But no, I mean, that's the thing is like, I really enjoy what I do. And the Sup Kid series gives me an opportunity to go from the ridiculousness and to give the advice that I wish I would have gotten. And that's why I got this tattoo. My artist got the idea of like, hey, you do shaving videos and they really impact people. And the messages I get are just fucking beautiful of like, man, I've been struggling with this or I've been struggling with that, and you helped me today. And that will drive me farther than $1 ever will. And one of these things that I am glad that I'm not struggling with thus far in my social media trajectory is my integrity. I will often say, and I have said in the past, my integrity is not for sale. It's not something you can put a price on. I'll never sell something that I don't believe in. And I can sell ice to an Eskimo if I believe in the ice. I just have to believe in it. And so that's where I'm at in the social media thing, is being authentic has gotten me farther than being anybody else.
I think it's clear to see that you found your purpose. If I can speak for you a bit, you're a teacher. Like, you're here to teach people, you're here to guide people.
Yeah.
Like you said, I want to be the guy that I didn't have for people. And at a high level, I would call you a teacher and a guide and a motivator. What do you recommend somebody does that probably hits you up a lot and says, I don't know what to do with my life. Where do I start? How do I figure it out?
You got to figure out where you fit in to your community. Because if you provide value to no one but yourself, that is a meaningless experience. And through that, other opportunities will come. If you follow 100% of who you are, and you do the things that you love, and maybe you don't know what those are, try some shit.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't have to know. I don't have any of this figured out. Like I said, I'm a guy with an iPhone 13 and shitty lighting and a half-cocked idea, and I'm just loving what I do. And that right there in the past 60 days has opened up more opportunities in my life than I ever thought possible. I am a poor kid from the horrible side of town with a drug addict mother and an absent father. Been on my own since I was 14. And I feel blessed to be where I am. And it's not because I had it figured out. It's not because I knew where to start. I just started. Yeah. Showing up is 80% of it.
It is. In the concept of taking imperfect action is huge. You have to be okay. There's a theory, I think it's a Japanese mythology that says it's like the stone theory. The stone path you are supposed to set on will not reveal itself until you step on the one in front of you.
Yes.
And then the one in front of you reveals itself. And I think what you've done, what I've done, what our friends out there have done, these creators, is they just started.
Yeah.
And you don't know. You don't have an expectation. You just roll.
You said something that I stole. And it was fear isn't a mile wide and an inch deep. And I used that in one of my videos. And boy, did it hit people in the chest. Because, yeah, when you're about to step off into the water and you don't know how deep it is, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
But you take that first step and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. You still can't see what's in that water. You take another step and you're like, okay, I might be all right. I'm not an aquatic creature by trade.
So you realize it's up to your ankle.
Yeah. And I'm terrified. Every step I take and the next step I take in the social media space is going to be a big one. And it's scary. But I got to take it because no one's going to do it for me.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that I want to land with my audience, if you can call it that, is that no one is coming to save you. No one is going to rip you off the couch. No one is going to do the work for you. And it takes work. It takes grit. It takes time. God damn it, do I want people to understand that it takes time. It took me 7 years to figure out how to do this. I was miserable and out of shape and unhappy and depressed and struggling with suicidal ideation. And it took time.
That's the thing that people have a hard time conceptualizing. I think when you tell somebody what's the secret and you're like, show up for an extraordinary period of time, years.
Yeah.
You can't conceptualize a potential outcome. I might get fit. There's no concrete yes. If I just do this for 7 years, well, that's the secret.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to do it, the universe will pay you back in spades.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe it's a big reason people aren't willing to. It's not like investing in the market. There's no data.
Yeah.
There's no clear outcome for you. You've just got to fucking start.
Yep.
And when it comes to starting, as we close the show out here, one of the things that we do is I started this whole thing with one mission: share easily implementable ways to improve your life.
Absolutely.
So if you were starting over,
mm-hmm.
if you were talking to somebody who was in your position, what are the 2 or 3 or 4 things that you would start doing today that are easily implementable,
mm-hmm.
minimal from a time and effort standpoint, that make a drastic impact on your life?
Absolutely. So, number one, understand that a calorie is a unit of measurement for energy, and that is all. You have a basic amount of calories that your body needs to maintain your level of body composition. And to gain weight, you use more or eat more, and to lose weight, you eat less, right? Counting your calories is not an always thing. It can help, but if you do it for a few months and you get pretty good at it, you'll have a solid idea of to how much food is in your food. And that's something I tell people a lot.
How much food is in your food? I like that.
You got to figure it out because otherwise you're guessing. You don't know. And so getting a food scale and practicing counting your calories.
Microphone.
Getting your food scale and practicing counting your calories is much more effective than intuitive eating. Eat your fucking carbohydrates. It's your body's number one preferred fuel source. And don't track your weight every day. Track your weight maybe once a week. And don't do it in front of a mirror. And don't hyperfixate on it. Just understand that it takes time. And you got to give yourself grace for why you're starting. Because if you're not where you are or not where you want to be in your body composition or in your health journey, understand that it happens to a lot of people. It happened to me. It happened to you. And when you start, you have to give yourself grace for where you started.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my big things. It's going to take time. It's going to take repeatability, right? You can do the right thing or the wrong thing for a long time and get results. But how awesome would it be if you optimized those results, right? So starting correctly, learn how to count your calories, practice that for a while. That's it.
Rinse and repeat for almost a decade, and you might just look completely different.
It'll work. I promise. The thing is, what I tell all of my clients, because I am a coach, is that it takes an 80% efficacy rate. That's it. 80% of the time, be locked in. 20% of the time, you can feel like a person. That's fine. And I teach a nutrition class as well. And something that I bring up often is if you struggle, you begin to struggle with anxiety about food, right? Oh my God, what am I going to eat today? Maybe back off. Maybe plan one meal throughout your day. Maybe just plan your lunch and kind of wing it during breakfast or wing it during dinner, but try to be a little smarter. But plan one, and then you can move on to planning breakfast or so on. If you start to struggle with relationships in your life due to your food habits, right? Like for me, I used to take my meal preps to family dinners. I used to take my meal preps to cookouts and birthday dinners.
Been there.
And it would be an awkward position. People are like, are you really going to eat just cold chicken and beans, and rice or potatoes? We're having cake. And I'm like, no, thank you. And you're locked in, right? And you feel vindicated in that moment because you're like, nobody's doing what I'm doing. You're hurting people's feelings. And if you're on a bodybuilding prep or maybe cutting weight for a combat sport, that's awesome. But if you're just a dude or just a guy or a chick that's trying to recomp their body, slow down. It's not that serious. Nobody is on their deathbed wishing that they counted their calories a little better. They always want more time with people. So don't let it affect your life that heavily.
Well said, man. I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thanks for agreeing to do this with me last minute.
Dude, I've been looking forward to this for a while.
This is cool. I hope we get to do this again. Maybe
absolutely.
In Tulsa,
I'll come out to
maybe
Georgia.
In Atlanta.
Yeah. I'll come out to Georgia for
Hell
sure.
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care.